While I was on vacation a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to watch a bit of the Olympics that had just recently wrapped up in Tokyo. And I'm not that big into sports, so I don't really look forward to the Olympics with any kind of real great enthusiasm. But once I tune in, I find myself kind of more invested than I ever thought I would be. However, it isn't so much the sports that interests me. It's really the athleticism. These individuals who are the best at what they do in the world, the amount of practice and sacrifice they make just kind of really boggles my mind. They train and they train and they train, all for but just maybe a few moments on the world stage to compete against those who have done the exact same thing that they've done. The pressure they're under, especially at such a young age, I really can't even begin to imagine. But I do think that this is a way that we can maybe begin to appreciate the solemnity that we're celebrating today. But it kind of begs the question, why were they there? Why would they even begin to do something like play volleyball or wrestle or swim or play soccer, whatever it may be? Why would you begin with no certain goal of ever winning the Olympics, much less compete in them? Because just to describe the regimen to me of their diet, their exercise, their time commitment, their practice, all but you just describe that to me, I'm exhausted by the end of it. So why would they do something like that? Why would we do that? To give up days where you could be playing with friends, eating what you want, staying cool indoors from the hot sun, not getting injured, but really practice all that much. Because practice is just really made up of all sorts of sacrifices. That's really the heart of practice, sacrifice. We go through all sorts of sacrifices. If you're in high school sports, your coaches are certainly doing that. They take time away from work, time away from their families to be with you. Your parents certainly do that, driving you from tournament to tournament, sometimes out of state, just to watch you play. Why would they do that? As I mentioned, I think that's a way for us, again, to enter into this solemnity. Today we celebrate the Assumption of Mary. The simplest way to think of Mary is to think of Mary as a mother. Motherhood has an essence, and the essence of motherhood is sacrifice. Your moms, every single one of you, has a mom who has made extraordinary sacrifices for you. You have no conception, really pardon the pun, of what she went to go through to bring you to life. The labor that she endured, the hours spent up at night, feeding you, taking care of you, responding to you when you would cry. And you did cry. The times when you were in need and she just went to help you. Your mother's entire life is sacrifice. But here's the problem. Whether it's in sports or in motherhood, everything within us recoils against sacrifice. You could say it's contrary to our nature. We don't want to do it. Something has to happen for a mom to get up in the middle of the night. Something has to move her to respond to the cry of her child when she, in her selfishness, is just sitting there going, please, would someone else just get him? But she gets up. Why? Well, one way to think about it might be like this. Because she says to you or about you as her son or her daughter, you're worth the trouble. In one way or another, that's what we say to each other in practice. That's the camaraderie that comes from sportsmanship. You're worth the trouble for me to be here at practice, to be sweating, to be going through all these drills, all that we're doing. That's what the coaches are saying to their athletes about foregoing their time away from their family or doing other things that they could be doing. They're all saying to those who play in some form or another, you're worth the trouble for me to do that. That's what prompted Mary to say yes to the archangel Gabriel when Gabriel came to Mary and said, would you become the mother of God's Son to save humanity? In saying yes to Gabriel, she said about us or to us, yes, because you're worth the trouble to do that. And the trouble she had, an unusual pregnancy, neighbors who talked, a son who was horribly misunderstood, standing there at the foot of the cross, watching him be nailed to a tree by the creation that he had made. Mary endured all that as a mom, as only a mom can, when she sees her child suffer, because she was thinking of us in a greater way than coaches think of their athletes. And she says to us, you're worth the trouble. This gives us a way of thinking about God, and God who is love, who shows us that from the cross, love and sacrifice are inseparable. And so the creator of the universe, the one who hung the stars in their place, the one who made you and me, who gave you everything that you have, every gift that you have, blessed you with your family, with your job, with your athleticism, with your height, your strength, with your intelligence, your musical ability, whatever anybody here has, he gave it to us, and somehow this creator of the universe who made everything said to you, you're worth the trouble for me. The master of the universe, the one in front of whom angels bow in awe, decided to become a man to endure that. To let his creatures mock him, taunt him, whip him, place a crown of thorns on his head, nail him to a cross, and then finally bury him in a tomb. God said to you, that's what he's saying to you right now, that's what he's saying to you from the cross. You alone are worth the trouble for me to do that. So much are you loved. So much is everyone here loved, that God would endure all of that in an even greater way than your moms, or really even Mary, endured all that they or she endured for us. So what's that mean for us? I think two things in particular. First, for those of us who are here today wondering what we might have, or the reasons we might have for hope, well, I think that one's the biggest. Because you matter. So much do you and I matter that he did that. He who needs nothing, who lacks nothing, who is infinitely happy, said, you matter so much that I would endure that for you. You're worth the trouble for God to do that. And if you're worth the trouble for God to do that, then you know that God will provide for you. He'll give you what you need, even though sometimes it's not exactly what we want. The second thing is that if you're worth the trouble to God to endure all of that, then you must be worth the trouble to him to be kind to him. It means that if you matter that much to God, then you have to matter that much to me. We simply don't understand. The cross reminds us, this solemnity reminds us that there are no ordinary people. Nobody is greater than anybody else, whether they're athletic or not, whether they're intelligent or not, whether they're beautiful or not. It means that in God's eyes, every single person is worth the trouble. Therefore, every single person who is presented in front of me is worth the trouble, and I have to act accordingly. I can't treat anybody in any other way than with respect, because that person is worth the trouble for God to do what he did.